Welcome back to some more Dwarf Fortress. In the previous episode, we found a rather unhappy dwarf and tried to resolve some of his complaints and issues by adding some additional food, adding some additional clothing work orders, as well as expanding the food and industrial plant production a little bit. In this one, we're going to cover a few more of the farming related workshops. And here we have a 575 drink surplus. Of course, what this means is our dwarves are all about to become very, very upset as they run out of alcohol to drink. So down here we have stills. These are under the build menu, workshop, and L for still. Simple 3x3 workshop. It requires one piece of building material, and it converts a plant item into an alcohol item, temporarily consuming a barrel to hold everything in. Options for storing alcohol: barrels, probably made out of wood. They're pretty easy to make, pretty fast to come by. However, they are going to be one of the primary causes of your wood depletion, especially early on. Alternatively, rock pots are a very easy way of storing your alcohol. They're not quite as renewable, however they are quite a bit not really easier to make, but you're going to have a whole lot more rock than you are wood. So if we go down to the first workshop level, go to the craft stores workshop, add task, rock, pot, and that will be able to hold any sort of alcohol type item. So here we have a dwarven wine pot that is just a large gabber pot, and it has 7 dwarven wine in it. Now, this is one of the points I made in a previous video. If a dwarf comes down to get a drink, they're going to grab this pot, and they're going to, they're only going to have consume a single unit of this wine. They are going to temporarily tie up the entire amount of beverage. So even though you may have, in the early fortress, 30 to 35 alcohol sitting around, if you have 4 or 5 dwarves drinking, they're probably drinking and tying up all the spare. So, the easiest thing to do is go to the manager, view for units, and for manager, orders. If I can type tonight, drink, brew drink, 30, brew drink, 30, drink, 30, drink, 30, drink, and that should be enough for a couple of months at least. So, that will get allocated between the, I believe, 4 stills that I have. No, 3 stills that I have. And just to check on everything, back over to the therapist, brewing, couple legendary +5, legendary +1, and a couple of trainees. They shouldn't have anything else to do. They do not, so they'll be right on that. The flashing blue down arrow over on these dwarves indicates basically they're thirsty. The flashing down brown down arrow indicates that they're hungry. So that takes care of that, and then down here we just have a very large collection of empty food storage items. So that takes care of our dwarves for the time being. The next item, the next issue that needs to be addressed, is dwarves just kind of like to leave old clothes and whatnot just laying around. It just falls off and they never get around to picking it up. So this is a worn fiber cloak that's been discarded. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's fallen off of them. It more means that they have a replacement item that they've picked up at some point. They've been carrying around. This one gets worn enough. They take off the old one, drop it on the ground, put on the new one, continue on their way. No bad thoughts or anything. So for this, go to the designate menu, the dump items, start in one corner, go down to the next corner, and this is simply going to select all of the dropped clothing items that are currently on the ground to be dumped into a refuse pile. Down here, and this is also another good reason to have all of your bedroom spaces in a multiple of 10. So you can just go to one corner, up and over, go all the way down, and that will get everyone's old clothing marked for disposal. There are a couple of mods that are floating around. The only thing they add is a workshop or a workshop reaction that burns old clothes, dead bodies, corpses, parts of corpses, bits and pieces of invaders that are no longer attached to each other, and converts them to either ash or either incinerates them, converts them to some sort of an ash, or the bones to flux. The return rate on them isn't all that good, and they don't produce all that much. However, it is a good way of helping keep your frame rate up and give some of your workshop laborers a little something to do. So we have the usual changing of the guard going on in our alert panel. And more dwarves just kind of keeping themselves occupied. Now, if we go to the units, Alright. Excuse me. One of the downsides of doing back-to-back recordings. So, last time I mentioned trying to get a silk industry up and running in a renewable fashion. There are several ways of doing that. Either hoping to get lucky and have a large number of small spiders. Unfortunately, your cat population is going to turn around and eat the small spiders, or otherwise kill them. Second option is hope to find a invader of some sort that spews webs. Downside to that, obviously, is the web-spewing creature is probably going to spew webs all over your military dwarves, followed by promptly eating them. So that becomes slightly problematic. The third and probably most common method is to find a giant cave spider. This is, of course, one of the side effects of revealing the entire map. But, again, I could simply pop open a little tunnel and then little side spot, and then reseal it, and know all this information anyway. It just saves on the various spores from infesting the fortress too early. And actually, this isn't good. This is not one of our dwarves. He is on the units list under other. Steel breastplate, helmet, bronze spear, iron shield. Alright, he's not much of a threat for any of our proper military squads. I'm just a little bit concerned that he might be doing something he's not supposed to be doing. So, we'll have to keep an eye on him. Anyway, back over to the units. The giant cave spider, silk, is probably one of the fastest to collect, relatively high value when it comes to clothing. So all you have to do is catch one. Luckily we have one on the map, and it is up here. So all we have to do is actually find out, let's see, looks like the top of the map on the first cave level. So this is where we have our entrance. Here's the caves. Then if you go up a level and over, you have a giant cave spider. Perfect. So we'll keep an eye on him and possibly see about actually opening up the caves today, or very soon-ish. They still need quite a bit of prep work. So if we can find our tunnel. Alright. So let's go ahead and get some bits and bobs installed. First we have this, which is suspended. And get that building again. So we're going to build T for trap, L for lever. We have the outside lever, simple grabber mechanism, another one here, and then we should have one. We can get to the dining room. And for notes, let's check the notes. And this one here does not have anything labeled. So, in order to check if a lever is actually connected to anything, use the T menu, and here we have a granite mechanism. The B showing that it's part of the building, while over here we have two that are part of the building, so that we know that this lever is connected to one other device. That's unconnected, that's unconnected. Oops. Main door, turret door, 7. No idea where that goes to. So, over here, place a label, name, and we're done. So we can now use that lever, add task, link to bridge, and this is a list based on the order of the bridge, or the order in which the bridges were made. So this was the first bridge I ever made, and we just have to quickly page through. Here we go. Place and then just possibly keep everyone from seeing something that isn't as good as it can be. That. Alright, so the trick to catching the giant cave spider is that I believe, I'm almost positive that they are building destroyers. So what that means is they're going to try to path to a building and not necessarily destroy the building down to fine bits of rubble, but for, let's say, a statue, they're going to effectively deconstruct the statue and just knock the entire thing over. Artifacts are immune to building destroyers. The building destroyer will simply run up to the building, try to knock it over, and get absolutely nowhere. That makes items like legendary floodgates, legendary statues especially, very, very useful for decoying any sort of building destroyers. So if we go to our build menu, let's see if we have any statues. Nope. We only have golden statues. That is somewhat unfortunate. However, let's go ahead and use one. So for this, we're just going to use the lowest quality statue that we have, which is going to be somewhat difficult to find. Let's just do generic golden statue of some dwarves. So that'll get hauled up in place. So this little hallway here, once everything is wired up properly, do keep in mind that by wiring, I do not mean literally running little wires. Dwarves have this funny non-local physics quantum interaction doohickey thingy. You pull a lever, 100 ticks later, the lever interaction fires off. Distance doesn't matter as long as they've been connected. So, once everything's been properly wired up and I'm ready to open up the caves, come in, open up these caves, close this, retreat our dwarves, close this lever, or close this gate, and any building destroyer, say a cave spider, comes in, passes through the room full of cage traps, hits the first one and gets trapped. So this gives me multiple opportunities to catch the giant cave spiders as it tries to path to the rather valuable statue and destroy it. Things like trolls. Trolls are going to be your other main building destroyer. They like to come in sieges and not really ambushes, but mostly sieges. The building destroyer traps are very good for pulling off some of the slightly heavier hitters in an ambush. So, while that's being adjusted, let's go ahead and add a task, and I'm going to actually do this in reverse. Okay, so this bridge to that mechanism, using kind of whatever's around, notes, and mark it as the place, note, building destroyer, trap, gate. Something to keep in mind is that notes tend to not be very precise as to which note they're pointing to. They do like to float across the levels, so if you see a note that isn't quite applicable to what you're looking at, you might have one selected that isn't on the proper Z level. So that's just something to keep in mind. So that's going to take a few minutes. Let's go down to the workshop, and here we have some of the dwarves finally getting all of the dimple cups and assorted berries sorted into the appropriate new stockpile. So the final little bit of this video is going to be covering some of the more plant processing items. Screw press and corn. I don't actually know how you're supposed to pronounce that. The screw press is basically, if you take primarily rock nuts, lay them out, you have two stones, simply press them together. Think of it like a hydraulic press or something like that. You squeeze out all the oil or juice or whatever. And then this is, think of it as a very large millstone that is powered by a dwarf, basically hand cranking it. It's not very effective as far as speed goes, but it is buildable anywhere. The other option is a millstone, B workshop, capital M for millstone, and that is going to require a gapper millstone. Luckily I already have one, and some mechanisms. That is going to be powered by some sort of mechanical power generator. There are currently two options. One is wind. That one is a little bit variable. I believe that each windmill either offers 0, either 10 or 20, or 20 and 40 power. The other option is a hydraulic water wheel. That one can be a little bit laggy, as realistically what you're going to end up doing is setting up a looping system where the water wheel powers a pump, the pump lifts probably several pumps, the pumps lift the water up several levels, and then the water's dumped back down. What ends up happening is you have a net positive gain of power. So dwarves have long ago invented the perpetual motion machine. It does take a small amount of power to jumpstart the system, but once that's been applied, it just keeps going. Unfortunately, that system can be a little bit laggy, as you do have falling water, moving water. Most of it's the falling and moving water. There are ways of doing it as a lag-free system, but that's a little bit complicated to set up. So, let's see, let's go ahead and dump that, and dump that. There's actually quite a bit of time every now and then spent just kind of running around picking up all of these items. And let's see. Oops. Okay. Dump that. Dump that. dump. Alright, that looks like all of the assorted clothing that is sitting around. So, what will end up happening is, I believe I have an item stockpile, or rather a dumping stockpile here. Yes. To do this, go to I, select a single tile. It doesn't need to be any larger. And then G for a garbage dump. And again, the Z level is a little bit wonky when it comes to dumping items into garbage dumps. But eventually, the dwarves will kind of try to bring it to a close-by dump pile. So once that's been done, this one might actually not have been dumped to yet. And it does not appear to have been dumped to. But anyway, what you're going to do is go to D, B, and then C to reclaim. I might actually have... They must not actually have gone around to dumping all the items yet. But what that will do is that will reclaim the items. Then here I have a stockpile that only holds basically wooden training weapons and finished goods. And that will tend to be the discarded and slightly worn or very worn items, as well as any kind of odds and ends that I really don't need, that I've somehow managed to pick up from one of the ambush caravans. Conveniently, that's right next to the trade depot. So, I simply trade away the previous caravan's ambushed goods or my worn clothing, and I've been making a pretty small fortune off of each trade. So, anyway, that's going to wrap up the video for here. And it is currently about midway through late winter. I'm probably going to end up getting another video out before the save happens. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it here and see what ends up happening. So until next time, stay safe, and remember, super dwarves are